Welcome back, focused learners, to another explainer. Today, we're stepping right into the laboratory to solve what is essentially a classic chemical mystery. Picture this. We have a solution in front of us, but we have absolutely no idea what its concentration is. So, how do we crack the case? Well, we use a foundational, incredibly precise technique called titration. Okay, let's dive into this.
Here's our roadmap for today's explainer. We'll start by decoding the unknown. Then we'll unpack the titration toolkit. After that, we'll walk through the step-by-step lab procedure, followed by calculating the actual concentration. And finally, we'll look at how to avoid those common pesky errors. It's a smooth ride from the physical lab tools straight through to the final math.
All right, part 1, decoding the unknown. This is where we set up the central problem of our mystery, figuring out the exact concentration of a completely unknown solution. So, what exactly is titration? Simply put, it's a lab technique used to figure out the unknown concentration of a solution. And we do this by reacting it with a solution where we actually do know the concentration. It's super common in acid-base reactions. But the real key idea here, gradual addition. It's like a balancing act. We are slowly, carefully adding the known chemical to the unknown chemical until the reaction between the two is perfectly, completely finished.
Let's lock in some crucial terminology right now so we don't get mixed up later. First, we have the titrant. That's our known solution, and it always goes up top into the tall burette. On the flip side, we have the analyte. That's the unknown solution we're analyzing, and it sits down below in the conical flask. Just remember, titrant up top, analyte on the bottom.
Now, we have to know exactly when our reaction is complete. And this brings us to a really vital distinction, the equivalence point versus the end point. You see, the equivalence point is the theoretical, mathematically perfect moment where the reactants have combined in exactly the right proportions. But, well, we can't see math with our naked eye, right? So we rely on the end point. The end point is our physical clue in the real world, detected by an indicator that permanently changes color. A flawless titration uses an indicator that keeps that visible endpoint practically identical to the theoretical equivalence point.
Moving right along to part 2, the titration toolkit, because every good detective needs a highly precise set of tools to work with. Take a look at our complete, standard investigative workspace. Notice that sturdy clamp stand, keeping everything solidly in place. Up above, we've got the burette, carefully secured. Down below is the conical flask, where all the action happens. Oh, and you see that simple white tile sitting under the flask? Do not overlook that. That tile gives us a crisp, blank background so our eyes can catch the absolute first, faintest hint of a color change.
And this brilliantly illustrates the secret to the burette's precision, that little tap at the bottom, called the stopcock. This isn't just about pouring liquids. This is about absolute control. It lets us accurately measure the volume, add the solution gradually, and most importantly, control the flow down to a literal drop-by-drop pace right as we get close to our crucial endpoint.
But wait, before the burette even gets to work, we have to prep our unknown analyte. Enter the pipette. The pipette transfers an accurately known, fixed volume of our unknown solution into the flask, say exactly 25.00 cubic centimeters. It's the essential pregame setup that makes absolutely sure our starting conditions are perfect before the actual titration even begins. All right, part 3, step-by-step lab procedure. It is time to get into the action and walk through the actual physical steps of solving this mystery.
Preparation is everything here. Step 1 is rinsing our glassware with distilled water. Standard stuff. But step 2, this is where people mess up. You absolutely must rinse your burette with a little bit of the titrant and rinse your pipette with the analyte. Why? Well, if you leave little droplets of plain distilled water inside your instruments, they're going to dilute your perfectly measured chemicals. It ruins your results before you even start. So always rinse with the actual solution you're about to use. Finally, you fill the apparatus and check the tip to make sure there are 0 air bubbles hiding in there.
Now for the main event. First, you drop in just 2 or 3 drops of a suitable indicator, something like methyl orange or phenolphthalein, into your conical flask. Then you open the burette tap. As that titrant falls, you've got to swirl the flask continuously to make sure it's completely mixing. And as you sense that endpoint approaching, you hit the brakes. You slow down and add the titrant dropwise. Literally, one single drop can be the difference between a perfect result and a totally failed experiment.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is that dramatic visual shift at the endpoint. This permanent color change is your literal aha moment. It's the chemical clue screaming at you that the reaction is done. For instance, if you're using phenolphthalein, it'll shift from perfectly colorless to this very pale pink. The absolute second that pale pink holds its color and doesn't just swirl away, you stop.
Once you stop, you read the final volume. Let's say it's 24.60 cubic centimeters. Now, keep in mind, burettes actually increase downwards. And the strict rule here, especially for colorless solutions, is that you must get your eyes perfectly level with the liquid and read the bottom of that curve, the meniscus, and always read to exactly 2 decimal places.
Of course, a good detective never relies on just one clue, right? We repeat the process to get what we call concordant results. That first attempt, that's just a rough titer. We do it fast just to find the general ballpark, and then we immediately discard it when calculating our final average. After that, we do subsequent titrations super carefully until we get results that are within 0.10 cubic centimeters of each other. If we look here, averaging titrations 1, 2, and 3 gives us a highly precise mean of 24.32 cubic centimeters.
Moving to part 4, calculating the concentration. We've got our physical evidence, now we just need to run the numbers.
Listen up, because here is the absolute golden rule of titration calculations. Always use the balanced equation to determine the mole ratio. Seriously, it is incredibly dangerous to just assume every acid and base reacts in a simple 1-to-1 ratio. Take sulfuric acid reacting with sodium hydroxide, for example. That's a 1-to-2 mole ratio. If you forget to balance the equation first, literally every single number you calculate after that will be entirely wrong. Don't fall into that trap.
To make sure you never get lost in the math, here is your ultimate 5-step sequence. First, balance the equation. Second, convert your volumes from cubic centimeters to cubic decimeters. You do that by dividing by 1,000. Third, figure out the moles of your known solution by multiplying its concentration by its volume. Fourth, apply that mole ratio from your balanced equation to find the moles of the unknown. And fifth, just divide those moles by the volume to get the final concentration of the unknown. Balance, convert, moles, ratio, concentration. Stick to that flow and you'll solve the mystery every single time. Finally, part 5, avoiding common errors. Because, hey, even the best detectives make mistakes sometimes, and we need to know what pitfalls to look out for.
First off, we need to separate 2 concepts that get confused all the time: accuracy versus precision. Accuracy is about how close your result actually is to the absolute true value. Precision, on the other hand, is just about how close your repeated measurements are to each other. So the crucial point is this: if you make the exact same mistake every single time, you'll get beautifully precise, concordant results that are completely 100% inaccurate because of a systematic error. Crazy, right?
To guarantee you get both accuracy and precision, you've got to avoid these classic mistakes. Parallax error. If you read the burette from above or below, that angle gives you the wrong number. Read it at eye level. Overshooting the endpoint. Adding too much titrant gives a reading that is way too high. Add it dropwise. Air bubbles in the tip. A bubble takes up space without being actual liquid, totally throwing off your volume. Run some solution through the jet first. And lastly, using way too much indicator. Indicators are actually often weak acids or bases themselves, so dumping too much in will literally alter the chemistry of your solution. 2 to 3 drops is all you need.
As we wrap up our investigation today, I want to leave you with a thought. We've seen just how incredibly strict these tolerances are. I mean, a single drop of liquid, a tiny invisible air bubble, or even one extra drop of indicator can completely ruin the precision of an equivalence point. So the next time you pick up a bottle of perfectly formulated cleaning vinegar or take a highly precise medicinal dosage, ask yourself just how much meticulous drop-by-drop titration went into guaranteeing the exact concentration of the chemicals we blindly trust every single day. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and as always, keep asking the right questions.